Legislators are a step closer to finding safer storage sites for nuclear waste as Yucca Mountain comes back into play.
It's unfortunate that in some cases there's this competition between local, public school districts and charter schools.
Well, last year's county school board race was one of the most expensive on the books. Why these once sleepy races are getting so much attention. And up close and personal with stars of a real science film, the creepy, crawly origin story from the Natural History Museum. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jade Hindman. Bipartisan legislation passed in the House this week is a step toward finding safer storage sites for nuclear waste. Spent nuclear fuel at San Onofre is currently being moved in steel canisters to concrete bunkers right next to the beach. The Nuclear Waste Policy Amendment allows long-stalled plans for permanent storage at Yucca Mountain to move forward again. That opens the door to build interim storage sites in Texas or New Mexico. However, it is not clear when or if the Senate will approve it. The San Diego City Attorney is asking for a legal review of the Soccer City and SDSU West ballot initiatives. The competing measures are before voters in November. The City Attorney wants to make sure they are legally sound. Both of the measures call for major changes of the Mission Valley Stadium site. And the race for District 4 County Supervisor is heating up. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says a slew of attack mailers supporting one of the candidates deserves a fact check.
These 4 mailers were sent out by a super PAC supporting Lori Saldaña for county supervisor. 2 of the mailers tout Saldaña's environmental record and say she has 100% ratings from the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters. That appears to be true for the League of Conservation Voters, but the Sierra Club faulted Saldaña for 3 votes taken in 2009. That would give her a 96% rating. Still good, but not a perfect score. And it's worth noting neither group has endorsed Saldaña in this race. Both groups endorsed one of her opponents, Nathan Fletcher. Now, Saldaña herself did not create these ads, but in an interview she stuck by the claim of her perfect scores from both environmental groups.
I'm not saying I'm endorsed by them. I'm saying that when I had an opportunity to serve and be held accountable to the voters, I was 100% on their environmental issues.
To read more about these mailers, who's funding them, and the other 3 candidates in the race for District 4 Supervisor, go to kpbs.org. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And if you get a campaign mailer in your inbox that you want KPBS to investigate, send a picture of it to mailers@kpbs.org. And the last time County Board of Education seats were up for election, charter school advocates narrowly missed gaining a majority. KPBS education reporter Megan Burke says now they have a second chance.
But first, a primer on the County Office of Education. Like school districts, it has school campuses. They're for students who are homeless, in foster care, or have been involved in the criminal justice system. The office also provides budget oversight and services for the region's 42 school districts. Its board governs those operations, and it hears appeals when a school district blocks a charter school from opening. That's why charter school advocates and unions poured more than $1 million into the board's 2016 races.
It's unfortunate that in some cases there's this competition between public school districts and charter schools.
Alicia Munoz has represented the southeastern section of the county since 2014.
Major cities in California.
She's defending her seat from Eric Lund. He's one of 2 candidates who could tilt the board in favor of charters. Last year, it denied 6 out of 11 charter appeals.
I've tried to vote as ethically as I am able to, based on the information I have.
Munoz says decisions on charter appeals are actually more procedural than election politics would lead you to believe.
Make your writing fun and interesting to read.
State law spells out exactly what board members must consider when making their decisions. A former English language teacher and a dean at Cuyamaca College, Munoz is proud of a decision she says was more subjective, the hiring of Superintendent Paul Gothold.
Safety takes many forms.
He truly values students. He values staff. He believes in equity.
And that's important, says Munoz, because of the vulnerable populations county schools serve.
So can you guys go to Google Classroom?
She says that's why she's on the board and why she has no plans to seek office elsewhere.
So you guys ready to get going?
Challenger Lund teaches business courses at Grossmont College and is CEO of the East County Chamber of Commerce. He says the board needs to be more open to charter schools.
I really care about our kids, and I really care about our young adults and their career pathways, and ensuring that they can find great education alternatives, whether it's public charter or public schools.
Lund says he would be a voice for charters, but not a rubber stamp.
And that helps the whole community.
He also hopes to leverage his business background to improve career technical education in the county.
I sit on a collaborative of the 2 community colleges out here in East County and the high school district, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, is make sure they work together so that students can be prepared to enter the workplace and become a strong workforce.
Innovation South, yeah.
In the opposite corner of the county, Cheryl James Ward is squaring off with incumbent Rick Shea. James Ward is married to the county's former superintendent, Randy Ward, who resigned amid claims he misspent public funds. He hasn't settled with attorney Corey Briggs ahead of a jury trial later this year, and James Ward says that says something, and so does her experience.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning.
She's the chief of academic innovation at E3 Civic High, a charter school in the downtown Central Library. James Ward also teaches educational leadership at San Diego State, but she started her career as a software engineer at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
I actually left JPL for another job that paid a lot more, thinking that that would kind of squelch my desire to teach, but it didn't. So I ended up taking a leave from there, and I became a math teacher in the Los Angeles Unified School District. And there I really got connected to kids and found that I wanted to do more for them.
James Ward says she would be supportive of deserving charter schools if elected.
Decision day is today.
But she says she got involved at E3 Civic High because it's a place where she could incubate new ideas and share them with other administrators.
It's really about how we prepare kids for the modern era of education. That's my research at San Diego State. That's what I live. That's what I breathe.
Yep, we did.
Incumbent Shea survived an expensive run against a charter-backed candidate in 2016. But this year, hardly any contributions have flowed into the campaigns.
Maybe the objectivity prevailed rather than the special interest of wanting someone to rubber stamp things.
Shea says he approves charters that are good for kids and denies those that aren't. Shea was an educator for more than 30 years, spending much of that time in the county's juvenile court schools. He says he's on the board to represent the community's most vulnerable children.
By me being in the classroom with those students, knowing their needs more than a normal average person would do, I think that's a real asset to this board to understand the students that we're trying to help.
Shea says he wants to continue to be an advocate for students and to nurture a recent partnership with the district attorney's office to prevent school violence. The candidates will learn their fates and that of the board majority in the primary. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
And you can see more of our election coverage at kpbs.org/elections.
Major money flows into the local district attorney's race. One California city says it's ended homelessness among veterans. And what's it like covering the Trump White House? Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
And yesterday, our partner iNewsSource reported the San Diego Unified School District lost its chance at $750,000 to help homeless students because of a missing signature on a grant application. Today, the district official who oversees homeless student programs took the blame for that error. The official, Jennifer Coronel, says she failed to get a signature from the finance department. Since this happened, she says the district has a new protocol to make sure grant applications are complete when submitted for funding. For more on this story, go to iNewsSource.org. A bit breezy out there today. Justin Povic has more on your Mother's Day temperatures in tonight's forecast.
Now, the onshore flow is still around. Yes, we're talking about some clouds and even some drizzly conditions here as we go throughout the overnight. And that'll keep those temperatures down a little bit below normal here for tomorrow. Could see some changes, though, later on this weekend. Still windy out there, though, over some of the mountainous locations. The ridge tops toward Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna. Wind advisory here into early Saturday morning. We're going to be talking about those wind speeds still on the order of 30 to 40 miles per hour. I think they really start to lighten, though, late this evening into the early overnight. Satellite radar is on the quiet side, but well, you do not see those low clouds, those stubborn low clouds, along with some drizzle that will have come back into place later on tonight. So misty conditions out there, down to 59, possibly a couple of delays out there on the roads and through the air for the early morning hours. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about temperatures here dropping off to around 60 in Borrego Springs, San Diego 59, Oceanside at 58. And again, a kind of a drizzly, misty start. Lots of clouds throughout the day. The interior, though, lots of sunshine toward Borrego Springs and Mount Laguna, and not quite as windy either over the weekend. Still notice that dip in the jet stream. Check it out here. We're still going to be a little cool, but at least closer to normal toward the coast. Inland also into the 70s, so the low clouds begin to break more heading into Tuesday and Wednesday. Mountainous locations begin to warm up a bit Tuesday and Wednesday, as well as the deserts. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick. Back over to you, Jade.
All right, a nice forecast ahead. Hey, we now have the full iNews Source report tracking those campaign finances. The campaign for district attorney has gotten heated. A lot of attention on a donation that was made this week after billionaire George Soros donated a lot of money to support Deputy Public Defender Genevieve Jones-Wright. She's running as a Democrat challenging interim DA Summer Stephan, a Republican. How much did Soros give?
So Soros has effectively, over the last couple of weeks, given about $600,000 to Jones-Wright, which is a lot of money. This amount of money is not typical in this kind of race. What's happening here is that he's donated about $1.8 million since January to a PAC, and that PAC is supporting progressive district attorney candidates around the country who support criminal justice reform. And that PAC has spent about $600,000 of Soros's money supporting Jones-Wright. So that includes, media buys, mailers, things like that.
Any idea of how much each candidate has sort of raised on their own?
Yeah, so if you look at what they've actually personally raised to support their campaigns, Summer Stephan is the leader there. She's the interim district attorney. She has about $485,000 raised so far. Genevieve Jones-Wright, the challenger, has raised less than half of that with about $200,000. But we do know that Summer Stephan is also getting outside help the way that Jones-Wright is. She has the support of the Deputy District Attorneys Association's PAC, which has spent over $200,000 supporting her. So there's a lot of outside money in this race.
A lot of money, period. My goodness. All right, now the California governor's debate, it took place on Tuesday night, and 4 Democratic candidates and 2 Republican candidates took the stage to debate issues like housing, education, and the environment. Who are the lead fundraisers so far in that race?
Right. So in the California governor's race, you have a ton of candidates. The top 5 have all raised over $1 million, which is a lot of money. This is a high roller race, of course. The top 3 candidates are all Democrats, and the number 1 far and away in fundraising is Gavin Newsom, a Democrat who's raised $15 million. In second place would be Antonio Villaraigosa, who's raised $7 million.
Well, it's certainly campaign season.
Yes, it is.
Jill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, we sit down with a top State Department official who recently traveled with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to North Korea. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And the new documentary American Socialist comes to San Diego this weekend, chronicling the life and times of labor organizer Eugene Debs. KPBS producer Nico Will sat down with filmmaker Yale Strom to find out why Debs, a man who died nearly 100 years ago, is still relevant today.
2% of the nation's population owns 60% of the nation's wealth. One man who understood the gross inequality between the working class and the rich and was able to communicate it best in his folksy manner was Eugene Victor Debs.
Why were you drawn to Eugene Debs as a subject?
In 2007, when then Senator Barack Obama and Senator John McCain were running against each other for the presidency, I noticed that at Senator Obama's rallies, the opposition would come and hold up signs, "You're a socialist, you're a communist, go back to the Soviet Union." Of course, there was no Soviet Union. "Go back to Russia, you're a red," whatever. And I'm looking at the TV with my wife, Elizabeth, and they're saying, wait a minute, he's the farthest thing from being a socialist. He's not a socialist at all. I thought to myself, it behooves me to make a film about really what is socialism and what is this word? Why do people feel a certain way when they hear it.
We believe that labor is entitled to all it produces, and that labor must organize politically as well as economically to abolish the existing order.
Do you see similarities between Deb's time and our time?
Very much so. Good question. Debs was dealing with immigration. And not only just about immigrants who were coming here, but immigrants who were not being treated well. Or you're an immigrant, you don't speak the language, we'll give them the lowest job. Women's issues, he was for women's rights, women's right to vote. Yeah. The great democracy in the United States, and it took us till 1920 to allow women to vote. Labor issues, inequality of wages, some making a lot of money, and some making barely enough. Lots of different issues that he would see. He'd be sitting here and say to you, yes, unfortunately, the United States has grown. There are many positive things, but there's many issues that we're still dealing with today, and we need to deal with them, not shove them under the carpet. They're not going to go away, and they're only festering, only getting worse.
No matter how diverse his audience, every listener felt that he was being addressed personally when Debs' long, bony forefinger shot out and waggled up and down to emphasize a point, or when his fist smashed into his open palm.
If there's one thing that you hope people take away from your film, what would that be?
Mahatma Gandhi says, the world has enough for every man's needs, but not enough for every man's greed. That's where we are. And I think this movie will just make people think. Make them think a little bit before they pull the lever in the November 2018 and eventually the November 2020 elections. And even if you're a conservative person, you can see there's fair and unfair. How can we make it more equitable for everyone? So yes, I hope this film awakens people to see that there is a better alternative.
American Socialist is playing at the Digital Gym Cinema in North Park tonight through early next week. The director will be in attendance for all screenings. Also this weekend brings some high-profile names in music, the Beatles and Kendrick Lamar, plus a lesson in how to eat crawfish. Here's KPBS Arts calendar editor Nina Guerin with what's going on.
Did you know the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album came out 50 years ago? To celebrate, choreographer Mark Morris has put together a new show called Pepperland. Presented by La Jolla Music Society, this modern dance show is inspired by the whimsy and the pop art from the 1960s. Mark Morris is known for his unconventional shows, and for Pepperland, he uses a live jazz band to perform the Beatles' music. Another highly acclaimed musician will be in San Diego this weekend. Pulitzer Prize-winning rapper Kendrick Lamar.
Confrontation ain't nothing new to me. You can bring a bullet, bring a sword, bring a morgue, but you can't bring the truth to me.
Lamar recently curated the soundtrack for Marvel's Black Panther, an album that features artists from his label Top Dog Entertainment. Called the Championship Tour, the concert also features fellow chart-topping artists like SZA and Schoolboy Q. Finally, if it's Mother's Day weekend, that means it's time for Gator by the Bay. This popular Louisiana-themed festival highlights Zydeco, blues, and Cajun music. Headlining this year will be the Grammy-nominated Cajun acts Pine Leaf Boys and the Revelers. The event also features plenty of food, including crawfish brought in straight from Louisiana, plus a lesson in how to eat them. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
A lot to enjoy this weekend. Also, the San Diego Natural History Museum hosts the second entry in its Real Science film series tonight. KPBS Arts reporter Beth Accomando is at the museum to give us a look.
I'm here at the San Diego Natural History Museum, where they're going to be screening Phase 4 tonight. I'm here with the curator of entomology, Michael Wall. And Michael, Phase 4 has bugs in it, and you feel like it gives them a starring role. But here at the Net, you have some of the potential supporting players.
Yeah, we've got lots of insects here at the San Diego Natural History Museum. In fact, we have over 1 million different specimens and a lot of ants. We got about 3,000 different ants, and those are the main feature in Phase 4 tonight. And there's one of the things I like the most about the movie is that they use lots of different species of ants, and they're all banding together against humans. And so some of the supporting character are these carpenter ants that you can see here that I think probably they use because they're really, really big mostly.
And why does the Net keep these collections?
We use the collections for research. We loan them out to researchers around the world who are interested in species discovery, describing new species of insects, or understanding change over time, so how the species within an area has changed over time. We have all these vouchers going back 150 years.
Now, as a scientist, you notice something that's not quite right in Phase 4. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, there was more than one thing that was not quite right in Phase 4, but the most egregious error was the use of these tarantula hawk wasps as the queen of the colony. So hawk wasps are not ants, and they unfortunately ripped her abdomen off and attached this really gross sort of pus bag that was laying eggs within the colony. So definitely, there's lots of things wrong with the movie, but this one really stood out to me as an entomologist.
If you'd like to find out more about insects, come to the screening of Phase 4 tonight at 7 p.m. Michael Wall will be introducing the film and taking questions about bugs. I'm Beth Accomando, and I am here at the San Diego Natural History Museum.
Very interesting. All right. More than 3 million people call San Diego and Imperial County home, and that means lots of neighborhoods across the region. As part of our KPBS Explore project, we wanted to find out what makes all these places special. We traveled to 5 communities and asked people to tell us about where they come from and what they want everyone to know about where they live. We begin with Southeast San Diego. Residents talk about misconceptions they think others have of their neighborhood.
A lot of misconceptions about the Southeast.
What they've been taught is that this is a community that's riddled with crime, that's riddled with poor people, which part of that is true.
Bad things happen everywhere. My first high school was University City, Claremont, La Jolla area. We had undercover narcs, and we found out there was certain type of drugs sold on campus, and I went to Lincoln. I graduated in 2009. No narcs, no drugs being sold on campus.
I think a lot of people don't think about Southeastern.
And we don't have a lot of people coming over here to spend money because we haven't created an avenue for that, not like North Park, for example.
You know, it's the typical, that's the ghetto of San Diego. What happens down there? What do people do down in southeastern San Diego?
I used to be ashamed of the Southeast because of all the negative comments and remarks I would hear from people close to me, family members, looking in the mirror like, why are you ashamed?
When I was growing up, we had issues with the police, but they also lived in our community. People knew where the school they went to. They knew them growing up. Now the police officers that are in San Diego know nothing. So what they're getting and they're learning is the same misconceptions that other people who don't live in Southeastern have.
I love that I'm raising my children here, and they love where they come from. They're not ashamed.
It's no surprise that if you have, the majority of people who are working in the media are living in places outside, that they don't have any interest in kind of reporting on and being aware of all of the positive things that are happening there.
There's a cross-section on Euclid and Imperial that a lot of people used to refer to as the Four Corners of Death due to gang involvement in the area. But over the years, we have reclaimed that area and renamed it the Four Corners of Life.
People want better for their families. People want better for their future, want better for their grandkids. So yeah, it is getting better.
An excellent series. You can watch the rest of it at kpbs.org/whereicomefrom. We'd like to hear about what you think of our series. You may join the conversation on our KPBS Facebook page. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening, everyone.